All right, it is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That's a little Stuck Mojo, probably my favorite tune from them, a little tune called Pipe Bomb. And on the line right now, a guy who's going to throw some pipe bombs at us about Stuck Mojo and Fozzy and everything else. It's the great guitarist, Rich Ward. Rich, how are you, man?
Man, I am fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I'm here in St. Louis, 15 miles away from Ferguson.
Oh, boy.
And they just announced that the grand jury verdict will be announced in 1 hour. So literally playing Pipe Bomb could be very appropriate for today's festivities.
Oh, well, maybe I should change to a nicer tune.
Yeah. Could you please play a Peter, Paul, and Mary song about Love Thy Brother?
Right. I hear you, man. Well, dude, obviously, man, you are, as you've always been, the busiest cat in all of hard rock and metal. If nothing else, you are a guy that has always been full of musical ideas. With that said, do you finally have enough outlets between Stuck Mojo and Fozzy and Walking with Kings and The Duke and the other 10 projects I'm not naming?
Yeah, the truth is that I try not to do too much at one time. If I'm doing a Stuck Mojo record, I'm not at that point in time actively making music with Fozzy. I've learned that I'm not good at multitasking. And I like to try to keep my mind and my kind of my focus on one project and one outlet at a time. So that being said, I have put out multiple records within a 1-year period of time. And when I do that, I find it more difficult because you wonder, well, how do I separate the projects? Do I keep groovy riffs that are super heavy just for Mojo when maybe that's exactly what I need to be doing for Fozzy? So for me, it becomes more about getting in the mindset of that band when I'm doing that. And luckily for me, I mean, Fozzy has been my only band, active band for the last 3 or 4 years,
Right.
5 years. And it makes it easier when you can kind of focus in on that because, as I said, these bands are very different.
Mm-hmm.
Stuck Mojo is such a different band from Fozzy in so many ways.
Right.
Fozzy is an aggressive band, and it is a heavy band, but it's not an angry band. And the voice is different, not just the voice of the vocals and the lyrics, but just the way that it's delivered. It's just different, and it's important for me. And a lot of that comes down to as the primary songwriter for Stuck Mojo and for Fozzy, it is important for me to write for who is the vocalist, because Chris is such a different artist than Bones is.
Right.
And when I'm writing, I'm thinking in terms of what is the vehicle that this song is being written for, and because I know Chris so well after being his partner for 15 years, it becomes more and more easy with every album for me to put myself in that headspace.
Right.
And it's important to do that because, again, when you're partnering with someone, as Chris and I are in the writing process, I mean, he's writing, 90% of the lyrics. So I have to, when I get those lyrics from him, I'm trying to figure out, what is the meaning behind the lyrics? And then how do I, draw a musical sonic landscape to them? And a lot of times once I'm finished with the demo and I send it to Chris, who he's standing right next to me, by the way, he's making gestures and making faces at me. So he's trying to pull me off my game, Chris. Don't let it happen. So a lot of times he's surprised and says, God, I would have never thought about that because I had in mind something completely different. But that's what being writing partners is about, is just finding, you have this in mind, I have this in mind, and somewhere in the middle is usually where it lands. And it's been a good partnership for us. Sure. Whereas, when I was in Stuck Mojo, writing stuff for that band, I was really not writing any lyrics at all. I was writing riffs And then I would take those demos and give them to Bones, and he would then write lyrics and his rhyme patterns on top of that. So it was a much different process.
Sure. Now with Fozzy too, and this is a guess, and you can tell me I'm dead wrong on it, but I think Fozzy, more than pretty much any other project that you've been in, whether it was Mojo or Kings or even your Duke record, it's the place where you can really experiment a lot more musically.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot more diversity in the Fozzy records than there were in any of the other projects that you've done.
Absolutely. And part of the reason for that was that at least in the earlier days, it was a really important thing for me to do, because at that point in the early first few records that I was doing, I was writing Fozzy records, Mojo was still an active band, and I was releasing solo records, and I, like you said, I put a Duke record out. I was another active band that I had was Six Speed at that time that I released a record with, and so I had all these projects that I was juggling at the same time. So I was actually actively, when I would go into the writing process for Fozzy, I was thinking in terms of, okay, what can I do to separate Fozzy from these other bands so that I don't feel like I'm writing the same record for all the bands? The only thing difference is the vocal approach. I really was making an effort to try different things, and that's fun. I mean, some of my heroes are Peter Gabriel and Devin Townsend and Pink Floyd, and those bands you never knew what you were going to get.
Sure.
And for me, I had the honor and the privilege to work with Devin on the second Stuck Mojo record, Pig Walk, and working with him was amazing, because he, not only is he an amazing musician, and I feel everyone could even go as far as to call him a virtuoso as an instrumentalist, but he's also an amazing singer, and he is an artist in every sense of the word, and he was fearless, and that was something that I will never forget to this day, is just his sense of never being scared of doing anything. If it felt right and you felt like this was an honest representation of where you want to take the song, don't be scared. Go down the hole. I know it could be dark, and fear can be a great motivator in life, because it's the one thing that keeps us safe. It's that instinct that gives us the fight or flight instinct.
Sure.
But when it comes to music, I feel like there should be no fear at all. You do anything, try everything. I mean, that's, I don't consider myself an artist. I'm a guitar player, and I'm a songwriter and a producer, but Devin is an artist, and I was in awe of just the way that he processed writing, and so that part of it really rubbed off on me in the way that I treat things moving forward. So Fozzy became the vehicle for try anything, don't be scared of, and because the other thing was that in Fozzy, our singer is a professional wrestler,
right,
and there came with that a lot of great stuff, which is that he's a famous guy and everybody knows who he is. He's on VH1, and he's on Dancing with the Stars, and he's a famous guy.
Right.
The other side of it is that he's a famous guy that was on Dancing with the Stars, and he's wrestling, and that is sometimes for some rock and metal fans is a hard pill to swallow, and it's hard for them to take us seriously, because metal fans in general, credibility is the most important thing for them. So for me, it was very important for us to be very ambitious in the writing process, to do things that other bands weren't doing, to try to do something that would earn our respect with fans, because we weren't just trying to be what was popular. We weren't trying to be when, Machine Head is the biggest band on the planet. We weren't trying to be Machine Head. Right. And when, Mastodon comes out, we're not trying to be Mastodon. We were just being ourselves, and we were trying different things, and we were doing bold, taking a bold approach to our songwriting and recording process. And I think that has served us very well, and sticking with it too, because, it's not something any band. It was the same thing with Stuck Mojo. I've been here before. Imagine in 1989, two black guys and two white guys show up at a rock bar to play heavy metal funk rock with a rapper.
Right.
It did not go over well.
Right.
You know, there was no precedent set for it. Rage Against the Machine wasn't even a band until 1992.
Right.
So we're driving around in a 1977 Dodge van playing every rock bar that would have us all over the country. And there weren't many black artists playing in rock bands, much less rapping.
Sure.
So we had a lot of work to do to overcome those stereotypes. So I'm used to being in this position, which is, frankly, if I'm being honest, I like it.
Right.
I like people to doubt, because it makes a fighter out of you, you know, and that was part of it for me too. I'm 5'9", 155 pounds at best, and when I was in high school, I was 5'9", 135 pounds when I was a senior.
Right.
And, you know, I had long hair and wore tight jeans and thought that I should be in Dokken, and I got the shit beat out of me by athletes just for the way I dressed, and that made me a fighter, young, you know, as a young guy, recognizing that, you know, if we make a choice to be different, there will be people who will push back.
Sure.
And that pushback will make you strong. It's the same reason that when you put weight on a bench and you're at the gym, it's that push against you that you're pushing back up against. That tension is what makes you strong, that repetition. And I think us being a band with a professional wrestler, we had to push extra hard to overcome the pushback that we were getting from people. And it made us a stronger band. It made us, I think it made us a better band. So, again, I love that. Hey, when I put my solo record out, it's like a 70s pop rock album.
Right.
You know, it's a super different, and the pushback I got from that was crazy. Like, people are like, has Rich lost his mind? It sounds like an Elton John record. You know, and I love that. Again, I feel like it's made me a better musician. It's made me more confident in myself, and then I'm just going to do what I want to do. I never, you know, when I was 12 years old and had my first guitar, and I stood in the mirror with the strap on, listening to Judas Priest, thinking, yes, I never for 1 second thought of it in terms of, you know what, I may be able to get a fancy car and a nice big house and have a pretty wife because I play guitar. I never gave a shit about any of that.
Right.
The only thing I cared about was how badass is Judas Priest and how badass is Iron Maiden, how badass is Randy Rhoads. I want to be like those guys because their music, it affected me.
Right.
It touched me. It was like it was almost like a religious experience that I felt like it was a connection on so many levels, and I wanted to do that. Not because I wanted to be famous, not because I wanted to be somebody special, but just because it mattered to me, and I wanted to do that. So for me, taking big risks and making different types of records, even if it's not something that is ever going to commercially sell 5 million albums with, again, it was not the reason I started in the first place. So it's not a motivating factor. So it just, again, you know, I think it's been the driving force of my entire career, is just saying, I'm going to do this my way with my bands, and everybody else can suck it.
Right. Well, I'll say this about your solo record. Anybody that could listen to Country Road and not dig it doesn't deserve to have ears. That is just brilliant the way you did that. Thanks,
brother, and I appreciate that. And again, it's we all listen to music through our own prism. It's the same way I'll see a movie that 10 people said, you got to see this movie, it's amazing. And I'll watch it and think, this is a steaming pile of crap.
Right.
But that's just because art, movies, music, you know, any type of entertainment is all up to being subjective. We can, you know, I mean, Kiss wasn't my favorite band growing up, but it was Dimebags. And
right.
Kiss inspired him to be an amazing guitar player, but he wasn't Ace Frehley wasn't my guy. But it doesn't mean that Ace Frehley sucks, in my opinion. It just means that he didn't touch me as an artist in an inappropriate way. And that's what's great about music is like somebody can like In Flames, somebody can like Cannibal Corpse, and then somebody can like Nickelback. And just because you like Nickelback and somebody else likes Cannibal Corpse doesn't make you a pussy. It just means that's what you like.
Right.
And it's okay.
Sure.
It's same way with women. Some guys like chunkier chicks, some guys like skinny chicks, and that's good.
Yeah.
Because that means there's somebody out there for all of them.
Exactly.
You know? And somebody likes smart girls and somebody likes party girls. And it's like, I just like that life is all about experimenting with finding out who we are and what we like, and that journey is just it's a great thing to do when you decide that something sucks just because you don't like it. That's when I just have no time for you because
right.
You know, listen, I didn't like the boy band thing, you know, but that doesn't mean that Backstreet Boys suck. Somebody liked them.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
It's just not my thing.
Right.
You know? I don't have to spend 45 minutes on Twitter saying the Backstreet Boys suck because I'd rather just spend that time listening to, you know, Bark at the Moon or something.
Right.
You know?
Sure, man. Well, let's work this around to the new record. Do you want to start a war? Certainly, your guys' most successful, I think, to date. What do you attribute that to? Do you attribute it to only the music, or do you attribute it to it was sort of timed at the same time that Chris was active once again with WWE, or a little of both, or what?
I don't know. I mean, Chris has been active, you know, when we put out Chasing the Grail, and he was active when we, you know, put out All the Remains, and those records didn't sell as well as the new one. If I'm there, you know, it's like saying, you know, why do I like broccoli and not hamburgers? You know, at some point, there's so many factors that I guess go into deciding why a record does well. But if you're gun to the head, I say that I think it's our best record that we've ever written. I think it was the first time that we ever wrote a record that when I was done with the album, I said, yeah, it's Chris's best vocal performances. I think the sound of the record is really good. I didn't second guess everything that I did on this record. On a few of the other records, like earlier in our conversation, there were times where I would say, no, I shouldn't do that riff because it sounds too much like Stuck Mojo. On this album, I just wrote music that I really thought was great. Tried to capture the energy and the attitude of Chris's lyrics, and didn't spend a lot of time second guessing things. The other part of it is our record company, Century Media. We have a great relationship with them, and I really felt like they were a big part of the success. Our A&R guy, Steve Joe, is a brilliant man. The owner of the label, Robert Camp, is a brilliant man, and we feel. I mean, I was with Century Media with Stuck Mojo in the mid-'90s. I mean, I know these people. I grew up with them. And I think those types of relationships with the people who are in charge of the business side of your career, it's equally as important. You don't always have to be at war with your label.
Right.
And I think part of it is finding that common ground because they're going to want things that you don't want to do. And you're going to have to say no to 10 things, but you're going to have to say yes to 20. And finding that balance of letting them handle the business and then asking them to trust me on the music. Century Media never said, send me the demos. We got to hear what's going on first. We want to hear the album before we put it out. They trusted me and Chris and the band 100%. There was never a point where they said, hey, you know, we want to come to the studio and listen to the mixes. There's no second guessing. They completely trust us.
Sure.
And that instills a lot of goodwill from us in allowing them and having trust in them to handle the business side of things. We've had the same manager since 1992. He managed Stuck Mojo. He managed Fozzy. His name's Mark Willis, and he is a huge part of the success of Fozzy, and as well as Stuck Mojo. And it's a team. So many bands will sit around and take credit for things that happen to them, but the truth is that only 50% of this has to do with us. We can make great records and we can, play great shows, but it takes a team. It's just like a football team. It's like the players are on the field. They still need a great coaching staff and trainers and a great front office, and management. It's so important to be a team and to treat it like a team, because as soon as you think it's all about you, then your team will tell you that, hey, listen, you don't need me? Fine, do it on your own. And unfortunately, a lot of bands have really suffered by not recognizing that being in a band is a team sport.
Sure. Now, Rich, not that this is any secret, because you and I have sort of known each other for a lot of years. Every time you've rolled through Cleveland and Akron, all the way back to Pigwalk.
Yep, absolutely.
And I was, as no secret, Stuck Mojo is one of my top 3 bands of all time, of any kind of music. I play the album. Nice, dude, I play the albums. Even now, I play the albums over and over and over and over. They're always in my iPod. Always. And to be honest, Fozzy was not that band for me from you until more or less till this record. And I personally attribute that to I had not seen the band until I caught you guys at Rock on the Range, 6 months ago or whatever it was.
Right.
And once I saw the show, I was like, wow, this is like the old school band that I used to love, just not with rapping. Do you think in your eyes that fans can truly get what you're doing before they see you, before they actually see you perform it?
I don't know. I try not to put myself in the position of how a fan is going to, receive us. And the reason I don't is because I don't want to presume that someone should like us or they should see us first live or should buy the record first. All of us are individuals and we're all going to like different things for different reasons. I can tell you that I think Stuck Mojo for a lot of people was very similar to the experience you just said, that, they heard Snappin' Necks and they're like, I don't know. This rapping guy on top of rock music and metal riffs, I'm not sure if I dig this. Then they come see it and they're like, I totally get this, man. I just, the album didn't quite capture what was going on. So I think your experience is probably true for a lot of people. But here's the other part of it is that, it is all about just being good every day, every second, and you have to remember that your experience that you had on Rock on the Range with us is important for us to take and keep in mind at every show.
Right.
Because nowadays you just can't have bad shows. Every day you've got to be 100% because, now everyone can pull their cell phone out and take some video clips of your gig and throw it up online. And even if someone wasn't at the show, they can watch parts of shows, and on their computer. And so it really puts us in a position where, listen, every show is the Super Bowl. We got to go out there and we got to kill it. And so it's important, not only for that, obviously wanting to win over fans is important, but also to honor the fans that pay $20 to come see you play. It's like, they have invested their hard-earned money into you on a night out where they want to forget about, their stupid job or, some friend of theirs who they're, fighting with or their significant other that they're not getting along with, and they want to go to a good rock show and just blow off some steam and just have fun.
Right.
And they've invested that money in us, and it's important to us to have respect for that commitment and that investment in us. And we want to say thank you for investing your $20 by giving them the best show that we can every night. And then the third component is, well, listen, when I saw Ozzy for the first time, it was unbelievable. I had never seen a show like that, and I I want to live that dream vicariously through him.
Right.
Like, I've got the opportunity to do exactly what Ozzy was doing at that point. Granted, I'm not playing arenas, but I am on the stage in full of packed rooms every night, and I have the opportunity to continue the legacy and be, a part of rock history. And I want to make those who came before me proud, and I want to do it for integrity's sake. I want to be as good as my heroes.
Right, certainly, man. Well, dude, there's been a change recently in the band. Jeff Rouse comes in from Duff McKagan's band, is the last place I know that he was at. What does he bring to the table that makes you guys stronger?
Oh, well, first of all, he's first-class musician. He is one of those guys who can pick up any instrument and play it better than everybody else in the band. He's so talented. He fronts his own band that he sings and plays guitar in. When I saw him with Duff McKagan's band, when they played the Guns N' Roses song, Duff grabs bass, Jeff grabs guitar. I mean, he's just a badass.
Right.
And beyond just his music ability, he's a great entertainer. I mean, he's a full package guy. He's a rock star. I love being on stage with him, looking over and going, yeah. I mean, he's got the it factor. And then the most important thing is that he's a super nice guy. I mean, he's about as nice a guy as you're going to meet. He's fun to be with on the tour bus and hang out with, and he's great with the fans, and he's a great guy. I mean, he's honest. He's the kind. He's got integrity. He's got all of those qualities that you'd want to be best friends with, and yet he has all the qualities of someone that you'd want to be in a band with. So, I mean, he's a total package guy.
Sure. Well, I've got two quick ones, Rich, that are basically you oriented only. Not that some of these other ones weren't, but the first one was the project that you did, Walking with Kings. Certainly, you've never been known anyway as like a spiritual Christian guy, and then you did this pretty. I don't want to say it's a preachy. It's not a Striper record. It's not preachy like that, but it definitely was spiritually leaning, which to me was surprising coming from you. Was that something that you felt you needed to do, or was that just where you were at the time, or what?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I do some producing on the side. That was just something that has been fun for me. I mean, I started producing all of our records on the All That Remains record. So for me, it was been a kind of a learning experience of, just like anything else. I mean, I guess you can go to tech school to learn how to become a studio engineer, or you can just make records and make mistakes and get better. And then with every album, you become a better producer. And because people have liked the way our records have sounded, I've had people call and say, hey, I would love for you to come in and produce my stuff, whether it's an album or a demo or whatever. And there's a local guy in Atlanta. His name is Terry Chisholm, super talented singer-songwriter. And he wanted to hire me to produce his band that he had that didn't have a band name. It was just 5 guys, and they were playing kind of Christian rock, but as you said, it wasn't Striper. It was just kind of spiritual in message. So it wasn't super heavy-handed, but it was definitely kind of this uplifting vibe. And I just started listening to their demos and listening. I went to a few rehearsals. I really recognized that this guy Terry was a special musician, and he had a great voice. And I liked his songs. I thought he had some great ideas. But I didn't think his band was amazing. I thought that his band was good, but felt like local band good, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure.
Terry was the rock star of the group, and I went to my manager, Mark, and said, man, I'm really digging this, and I'm really digging this guy, and I'm digging this music, and I like how this music makes me feel, and I love the message, and it's something very different from what I have been doing. What do you think if I approached the guy about letting me help continue to write with him to finish the writing for the record and playing guitar on it, and let me get Frank, our drummer from Stuck Mojo, Fozzy, to play drums on it, so that I know that it will be as good as the other projects that I'm doing. Because obviously your record and your live show is only as good as your drummer.
Sure.
I mean, he is the foundation of it all. So my manager Mark said, man, yeah, I think it's a great idea. So I approached Terry and told him, hey, would you be cool with me, basically partnering with you on this thing as a kind of a co-writer and produce the record with you? And he said, sure. So the band was never a band. We never gigged with it. It never even did one show.
Okay.
It was a studio project. And it was a lot of fun. And I would love to do, Terry has now become the sixth member in Fozzy. I mean, he sings background vocals on our records, and he plays all the keyboards on Sin and Bones and If You Want to Start a War is all Terry.
Okay.
So Terry has, I have continued to work with Terry. I mean, we're not doing Walking with Kings material, but he has become a partner that I really like working with. He's a super talented guy, and he's got a crazy high range like Tommy Shaw.
Right.
Just amazing. So, when you're in the studio and nobody else has the extra gas to get those high notes on top, I could say, hey, Terry, man, I need the super stratosphere high harmony on this, man. You got to come in and sing it. And so he and I have stayed friends and musical partners. So, again, there was no, I didn't just wake up one day and say, man, I really want to make a Christian rock record.
Right.
It was just, it was breadcrumbs. It was the path. Was it God laying crumbs down to saying, hey, this is something you should do, pointing me in that direction, or was it just happenstance? I'm not smart enough to know any of that stuff. All I know is that we made a record that I'm really proud of, and it led to a great relationship between Terry and I that has continued. I mean, the Stuck Mojo the Stuck Mojo reunion show that we're doing on the day after Christmas, Terry's going to come up and play keyboards on Southern Pride with us. So,
nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, this business, as I talked about earlier, it is about relationships. It's about finding people that you find a common bond with musically, and let's be honest, music can be the most effective spiritual tool, and I don't mean in terms of it has to be about God but it can be something that can immediately change your outlook on something. It can be influential when it comes to political or social topics. It can make you smile when you're having a bad day. And so finding people that understand that and who can help you achieve that is important.
Sure. And the other real quick one, it also has to do with Walking with Kings as well as Stuck Mojo. Why did you choose to redo Friends with completely different lyrics for both projects?
Well, Terry loved Friends. He thought it was a killer song. So the idea was basically Terry had, I think, 7 songs written for the Walking with Kings record, and then I suggested that, hey, I have some material that was never really properly, because that Stuck Mojo record that the Friends was released on, that album, I mean, in all honesty, it wasn't even released. Because the record company, it was such a huge change in direction for the band. I mean, I was really wanting to try something that was kind of this cool Southern rock thing. It was a little different. And again, guided by my no fear motto,
right,
thought that, hey, we've got a new front man. Lord Nelson is in, Bones is out. Why don't we just take this opportunity to try something completely different? Papa Roach did it. There have been a lot of bands who have done about faces musically, and it worked. And again, it wasn't something I was trying to do because I thought it would sell more records or it would be credible, or I wanted to do it. So when we turned that record in, that record was released by Napalm Records, and they're a heavy label,
right?
And they just didn't know what to do with it. It was something they just didn't know what to do. So there was a bunch of songs I thought on that record were killer. One of them was Friends, and it never saw the light of day. So Terry said, hey, man, I'd love to redo that song. Are you cool with it? I said, of course. hell, no one's heard it.
Right.
You know, it's one of those. It's probably the Stuck Mojo record that should have never been released, and hasn't been heard by a lot of people. It's not, you know, looking back on it, it was probably it probably should have been a Duke album, more so than it should have been a Stuck Mojo record. But, you know, again, you know, I don't have regrets on it. It's just looking back in hindsight of you know, looking at it from a business side, because I don't really have a good business head. You know, I think in terms of my gut instincts on music. Is it good or is it bad? I don't think in terms of how is the press going to receive this, or how is the label going to market it. I let them worry about that.
Right.
I worry about, you know, can I stand by this record? Do I believe in it? So long story short is, so I gave it to Terry and said, man, do your thing. You want? And he was like, hey, I'd like to rewrite the verses. I was like, man, do it.
Right.
You know, and again, he's a great writer. I had a lot of trust in him. And there were some other songs that were on the record as well that I had written for a Duke album.
Right. Autumn Brings is one of them, right? Autumn Brings? Isn't that one of them too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sure was.
Yeah, no, dude, I love that stuff. I mean, but it's really kind of fun to listen to Friends back to back, because there is obviously there's a humongous dynamic change between Lord and Terry, you know, vocally and vibe and everything else, which is great.
Yeah, I agree. And again, you know, sometimes I think I'm still that, you know, 14-year-old kid. You know what I mean? I don't, and that's for me part of why I even do it, is that excitement. I mean, there's, you know, on pretty much every album project, there's at least a couple of times where I get super emotional. Like when I finished recording that version of Country Road, because I kind of wrote that for my mom.
Right.
And when I finished it, man, I mean, I almost like freaking broke down. Like, I really thought it was special. I thought it was really cool. I thought the performances from all the guys were great. And I just thought we achieved something really cool. And I was, you know, again, it moved me. And if it's not moving me anymore, then it just doesn't matter. I don't want to make marshmallow fluff sandwiches, you know, things that taste good, but an hour later you're hungry.
Right.
You know, just no nutrition. It's just styrofoam. I want to make stuff that, and again, not everyone is going to receive these songs the same way, or interpret them, or, you know, absorb them the same way that I do. But I don't make records for other people. I make records that move me.
Right.
And hopefully there's a lot of people that share, you know, the same kind of palette for music that I do, and that we, you know, together we'll share this kind of love for, you know, whatever it is that we as a band are able to create. But ultimately, I can only be honest with myself and make music that I think is important to me, and then how everybody else takes it, you know, that's up to them, you know?
Sure. Well, man, for now, the album of note is Do You Want to Start a War? That is Fozzy, of course. And as a tradition on the show, Rich, we always let the artist pick a closing track to wrap the interview up and tell us a story about it. It doesn't have to be from Fozzy. It can be from anything you want. So what'd you like us to wrap this one up with?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things about Fozzy is exactly what you talked about earlier. Is like, God, I cannot believe that you guys, you know, there's such a wide diversity of sounds and approaches on our records. And so I'd love for you to play our cover of ABBA's SOS off the new album, because there's no reason why a metal band should cover an ABBA song. So it's all the more reason why we did.
All right, well, let's check it out right now. This is Fozzy. It is SOS right here on your Classic Metal Show.